Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our discussion today on what happens when you mix alcohol and cannabis, just learnings from both industries. I'm Meredith Mahoney. I'm the president of Lantern. We are a cannabis e-commerce and marketplace platform that connects the consumer to licensed dispensaries for on-demand cannabis delivery. We are backed by Drizzly, which is the largest alcohol e-commerce platform and delivery service in North America. So we obviously have a lot of learnings from both industries, and we're excited to share what those are today. So let me just share my screen. Great. So let's dive into what happens when you mix alcohol and cannabis. So we're going to cover two topics today. Then we'll go into some Q&A in the chat. The first topic is just looking at the impact of COVID-19 on the cannabis industry, but particularly delivery and e-commerce. We've seen some really interesting trends over the last 6 months that we'll share. And then secondly is just looking at this comparison between alcohol and cannabis. Being part of the Drizzly umbrella, as our parent company, we've really been able to dive into the differences and similarities between the two industries, and we're able to glean some insight there. But first, let me just give you some context on what we do at Lantern. So I mentioned this earlier. Lantern is an e-commerce marketplace that powers on-demand cannabis delivery. We bring consumers together with licensed dispensaries, which allows us to offer the widest selection and the best products to customers in any market. The customer puts in their delivery address, and then they see all the products that can be delivered to their door. And we define on-demand as delivery in about 75 minutes or less. And this is really not something that's done well or done at scale out there in the world of cannabis delivery. So we're really excited. We've seen this to be a major game changer on the alcohol side, that customers really want their deliveries to come quickly. Unlike other e-commerce offerings out there in the world for cannabis, again, we're a marketplace. So customers are able to shop product first. They're not shopping dispensary first. They're not shopping convenience first. They're really shopping with the idea that they're finding the products that are right for them. And we're creating a customer journey that's meant to be as educational and personal as it is working with a bud tender in your in-store dispensary. We're offering discovery tools, enhanced product information. Really, this is all about the customer. Lantern is really driving that enhanced customer experience. Just to speak to the connection to Drizzly, Lantern was created by the same team that founded Drizzly, which will do almost $500 million in alcohol delivery sales this year. To pause on that and drive that home, $500 million in alcohol delivery, which is huge. Drizzly spent the last 7 years creating this very flexible technology that powers large-scale marketplace delivery. And that technology is the same technology that powers Lantern. This technology is built to be very flexible across different states and municipalities. It very easily responds to different regulations, different marketplace models. And so we really feel strongly that we're built in a way that can scale quickly and really bring a lot of value to the consumer and also to the retailers. But for all of those synergies that exist between Drizzly and Lantern, we found that the two industries are very, very different. And we're identifying areas that we need to refine and customize the approach to better serve the cannabis consumer and also the cannabis retailer. But before we get into the insights around cannabis versus alcohol, I'm just going to share some learnings we've had during the last 6 months of the pandemic. So a few charts here that show some things that I don't think are that surprising. So first is online cannabis sales grew significantly earlier in this year. We're finding that consumers are buying more, less often. So retail sales of medical and recreational cannabis are on pace to rise by 40% year over year and should get to about $15 billion by the end of 2020. A large portion of this is delivery and e-commerce, which is quite different than it was in 2019. We have seen on the Lantern side on the Lantern side, average order value increased significantly in March and April. There were, a number of states that restricted access to cannabis in dispensaries. The state that we're in, Massachusetts, actually closed recreational dispensaries for a few months. And so our theory is that people were really stocking up due to uncertainty. We also in Mass saw the rate of medical cards being issued grow dramatically in response to the lack of accessibility to access to recreational product. Again, on the alcohol side, to make the comparison, very similar. Drizzly alone has seen over a 300% year-over-year increase in alcohol sales, and some of those partners on the liquor store side are seeing up to 30% of their sales go through Drizzly. So delivery in general across all categories saw a huge uptick as part of the pandemic. We think it's here to stay. We don't think it was a blip. People have expected over the years for products and categories and services to reach them at their home, and cannabis is no different. The other areas of consumer behavior, food, groceries, alcohol, your prescriptions, Amazon at the drop of the hat, everyone is expecting things to come to their door. So we're really excited about delivery in cannabis. And we think COVID just sort of accelerated a trend that was going to happen maybe over a longer period of time. I touched on this, but demand for delivery also spiked. And you can see this here in a graph that shows search volume for 3 different delivery terms: weed delivery, which is the blue line, sitting alongside alcohol, and restaurant delivery. Dispensaries are seeing their share of dollars going through delivery increasing. Before the pandemic, we saw about a quarter of sales going through delivery, and now it's average over a third of sales and increasing every quarter. Customers, again, are expecting that most of the things they buy in their life can be delivered to their home, and so we believe that we'll just see this trend continue into next year. So now getting to some, I think, very interesting insights we've learned from operating in both of the industries. So number 1, regulation requires adaptability. This is something that is the same. For both Lantern and Drizzly, 2 important points. One is that regulations drive innovation. And the second point is strong regulatory relationships are vital. I'll start with the first one. So the idea of regulations driving innovation and flexibility in tech, this is really at the heart of everything we do, and we believe it's a competitive moat for us. When you're operating in a category that doesn't have a legal status federally, and states are taking the lead on creating regulations specific to their state, even at the city and town level, a lot of times the regulations are customized. You need a technology product that can respond to all of those in real time to present the best range of opportunity for the retailers, and then also offers the best experience to the customer. So that's what our technology does. On the second piece, strong regulatory relationships. What we've seen on the Drizzly side and alcohol is that when we founded the company, we went into states prior to launching there, introduced ourselves to the regulators, got to know them, got to understand what they cared about, and then made sure that our tech product and our consumer experience met every piece of the letter of the law. We're doing the same thing in cannabis. Often the regulators are the same as they are in alcohol. If they're not, they're closely connected. And we believe that creating those strong relationships with regulators before you do any business in a state is vital, just to making sure the partnership works well. Lantern is actually not a licensed business, but so we don't technically have to adhere to the set of regulations that licensed operators do, but we make sure that we're really paying attention to anything and everything we should be doing to facilitate safe, legal access to cannabis. And that has been very helpful along the way. A couple of examples of how we have worked with regulators. First off, we are pretty well known on the alcohol side throughout the country after being in business for 7 years. So we've seen states, and we've had states call us and say, we're contemplating delivery for cannabis in our state. We kind of don't know where to start. What are the things that you would be thinking about? So it's great to be a resource for those regulators. And then secondly, we've been really lobbying and advocating for social equity initiatives across the country. Most recently in the Denver area, we were part of the Denver Working Group on Delivery, and really advocating for delivery as a great way to give real opportunity to social equity business owners, something we feel really strongly about. The next thing is early adopters drive tech integration and advancement. This is actually something that's different than alcohol. So in the early days of alcohol delivery, there was virtually no technology driving the industry. A lot of that has changed now. We have a lot of competition in alcohol delivery that's being driven by great tech innovators, but cannabis really started out as a technology-driven industry. This is out of necessity. Given that we are not part of a federally legal category, and there are a lot of restrictions around banking, marketing, product testing, et cetera, you need technology to drive innovation in those areas. And what's been great is that you've had bigger, well-funded tech companies getting into this space and really providing great solutions. This is great for us because we're a tech company. And so the retail operators that we are working with really understand what we're trying to do. There's not sort of an education period. And a lot of the retail partners are very tech-centric. They were also early adopters. And so we're seeing that technology today is much more advanced in cannabis than it even is in alcohol today. And cannabis operators are really utilizing technology to drive growth and to drive different ways to service the customer. So it's a really good partnership. Glad to be in cannabis from our point of view. It's great. Number 3, retail operators are increasingly sophisticated. This is something that is different. So in cannabis, unlike alcohol, you've got big organizations. A lot of them are vertically integrated, well-funded. The management teams are pretty senior. As I mentioned in the last slide, they're tech savvy. In contrast, alcohol is still largely dominated by mom and pop operators. They're about 40% of bev-alc sales. And in some markets, they're actually 100% due to license cap restrictions. And so on the alcohol side, those operators lack the large-scale corporate structure that's common in cannabis. And so what that means for us as a tech platform is these retail partnerships are more complex. The whole business development cycle takes longer. It's more layered. We really need to convince more people of the value that we bring to the table. But what's great is I think you've got organizations that are very visionary. When partnerships come to fruition, they're very impactful, and you can make a lot of progress quickly once you secure partnerships. Again, back to the technology piece, I think that there's a group of people that manage these large operators that really do understand the power of tech and can really get on board with how that can service the consumer. I'd say a downside, however, is that it's very difficult to flex to meet demand in cannabis, unlike in alcohol. So in cannabis, there are a lot of regulations around who you can hire, what kind of badging they need for employees and drivers, how you outfit vehicles. You're not just going to turn on additional capacity for delivery the way you can in alcohol or the way you can in food delivery. So there's pretty significant operational overhead that the operators have to deal with. And sometimes that can put delivery as a lower item on their priority list, even though from the previous slides, we can see how much consumers want it. Unlike alcohol, where you can just easily hire and manage delivery fleets, kind of turn them off and on as needed. Number 4 out of 5, consumers crave credible cannabis knowledge. Again, something different. Unlike alcohol, where customers are loyal to brands and they largely know what they want to buy, cannabis consumers actually have to navigate unfamiliar product offerings on a regular basis. So we're finding that customers want more product information and education. They shop very differently. In the alcohol world, you know your brand, you know what you like to drink, and you're mainly looking for price, availability, and speed of delivery. In cannabis, you're very likely not to know anything about a strain. Operators are growing and manufacturing their own product. Maybe you're unfamiliar with their offering. And so our job is to give the customer everything they need to know in order to make a great decision that they feel good about and match products to them that are right for them. So we've created a discovery tool for the customer that's just the beginning. We're really trying to create a personalized experience that feels very much like the bud tender experience that you would have in store, while still getting all of the convenience and smooth experience of doing it online. We're finding there's still a lot of room for a best-in-class online experience. We don't feel that that's out there yet, and we feel that Lantern will be the one to give that to consumers. So we're very excited. The shopping experience is very different. Brand loyalty is not to the products; it's actually to the dispensaries and to hopefully to Lantern some point in the near future. And lastly, number 5, marketing is really hard. Cannabis marketing is very complex, and again, this is different than alcohol. I'm also often very jealous of our counterparts on the alcohol side. I think they've got it kind of easy because they have limitless channels that they can play in. For any of you cannabis marketers out there, you know that this is not true for our category. Paid channels are very limited and they don't include much programmatic. Facebook, Instagram, Google don't allow cannabis advertising. So getting the word out is very complicated. It's also more fun because we have to be a lot more creative. But if you look at any other e-com delivery technology platform, their marketing budgets, the majority of it go into these channels. For some companies, this could be upwards of 70 or 80% that are going into Facebook, Instagram, paid search, et cetera. Another big difference is that most delivery platforms are apps that, iOS and Android apps. Cannabis apps are not permitted on the iOS or Android stores, and at least where you transact on the app. And so for other delivery platforms, this is a pretty big driver of customer acquisition that we don't have access to. There are creative ways to, I don't want to say get around it. There are creative ways to stand up what looks like an app, but doesn't actually perform like an app, which customers can spot pretty quickly. And as I mentioned, the other thing about marketing is in less mature markets, which is most of the country, consumers don't have brand affinity yet for cannabis brands the way they do in alcohol. So most other categories, you as a customer may shop for a specific product and search that and then find the retailer that sells that. At this point in the trajectory of the industry, most consumers don't even know what to search. And so building that brand affinity around Lantern is very important. So they think of it as a place to go to discover products that are right for them. And then one bonus topic here around social equity. Social equity is sort of a buzzy term in the cannabis world, and the initiatives around it can range from things that are deeply meaningful on one end of the spectrum, and on the other end of the spectrum, they can be just positioning for a company. And then even the ones that are very meaningful and impactful, those come to life in a number of different ways. So at Lantern, we're actually a team of entrepreneurs. We're startup people. We have built a number of technology and direct-to-consumer companies. That's what we do. So we've applied that to our social equity work. Our work focuses on helping entrepreneurs stand up cannabis businesses. It helps create generational wealth and real opportunities in the local community. And then in turn, it comes back to benefit us in spades, creating strong partnerships for the Lantern business. Delivery is actually one of the best paths into the cannabis industry for social equity business owners. It's the lowest capital way to get into the business, and you can actually scale it very quickly. So if you think about what does it take to stand up a delivery company, you need a car or a couple of cars, you need a couple of employees, versus opening a dispensary where you could have huge real estate costs, store build out, inventory, et cetera. So we love to think about delivery as a way to help social equity entrepreneurs break into the business and start to grow their businesses. We run a delivery incubator, and this has created a great ecosystem in Massachusetts. We hope to scale it to other states in the future. And we have partnered with local entrepreneurs to build their delivery companies, kind of told them everything we know about delivery, the technology piece, the way that the financial model works, legal considerations, regulatory, and continue to partner with them closely on helping all of their vision come to life as they build their businesses. We're actually doing a fireside chat on this topic, which is part of this conference. It's called Building Each Other Better, Shared Purpose and Community in the Cannabis Industry. Would love for everyone to join that to hear a really great success story out of our incubator. And that is it for me. Always open to questions. I'll be available after this session to answer questions live. And then you can also reach me at meredith@lanternnow.com with any other questions or comments you have. And thanks so much for your time today.